Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about an article that came out in a couple different little online news outlets a couple days ago. And apparently a 34-year-old fat acceptance activist and speaker died of a heart attack at the age of 34. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. Now, before a bunch of you pass judgment on me covering this, please listen to what I'm going to say here. Now, as the story goes, apparently this 34-year-old woman weighed 412 pounds and was a speaker and had coined the term thin privilege. And saying, she doesn't hate thin people, she just says that they need to recognize their privilege. They need to recognize their privilege, and she fit kind of a textbook stereotype, overweight woman, very overweight, over 400 pounds. It stated in the article that she admitted she had a preference for dating African American men, that she believed that she was healthy in spite of this. And in fact, she apparently said in different lectures that when people find out she was 412 pounds, they think she's automatically unhealthy. But she claimed that she was one of the most health-conscious people out there, and that she actually did exercise and pay attention to her diet and everything, and that being obese isn't necessarily unhealthy, that it's not even linked to being unhealthy, that's just a myth. And then she dies of a heart attack. Now, the thing is, was this a real news story? No, it was a fake news story that got spread everywhere. But the point was, when people saw it, in no one's mind did it seem to be a fake news story. People were talking about it and just accepting it and making fun of it and making fun of her, because this is how fat acceptance comes across to everyone out there with common sense. It wouldn't surprise any of us. 400-pound woman dies of a heart attack in her 30s. This isn't a shock. It isn't a surprise. No one was out there saying, oh man, what a tragedy, she died so young. No, everyone's opinion was that this fat bitch died of a heart attack because she couldn't quit stuffing her fucking face. Fuck this person for promoting their shitty lifestyle that killed them. That was the response. And that's what people in the fat acceptance movement need to understand. Everyone who has basic common sense and who looks at science and medical research knows that fat acceptance is deadly and dangerous. And so if something like this supposedly happened, no one questioned it, because this is what we would expect to happen. This is like a perfect fake news story, because it's one that fits what common sense even dictates would happen. And it highlights, this is almost something you would have expected to see in The Onion, because it highlights the sheer stupidity of the people who follow this fat acceptance movement. This idea that they have that because they feel like they can't lose weight, that they feel that it's okay to be a fat person because they've been rejected for it, they feel beat down for it, and so their feelings dictate that it really is okay and it's normal, that it must be okay and normal. Unfortunately, the world we live in today spends a lot of time focusing on how people feel, what their feelings are. I feel like this is the way it should be. I feel like this is how it is, while we reject reality. We reject what reality is. And reality is, almost every medical doctor on earth will tell you that obesity itself is a disease. Obesity itself is unhealthy. No matter what you do, if you are morbidly obese, you're holding more than 50 pounds of extra body fat over the normal range, your health will suffer for it. That it is almost statistically impossible for you to be healthy. It's almost statistically impossible, meaning less than 1% of people, even those who eat broccoli, they eat some green stuff every day, and they do a little bit of exercise, their blood work is still going to come back absolutely fucking atrocious. Alright, and we know that obesity itself massively contributes to other diseases. Everyone who studies this knows this. Anyone who's looked at the data and the research knows that morbid obesity is absolutely deadly, and that anyone promoting it who's saying it's okay, we should just accept it for who it is, and people should accept my outward appearance and people should accept my behavior, are basically the equivalent of someone saying I should just be able to inject heroin in front of everybody. It's not as unhealthy as people made it out to be. I'm happy with myself for who I am as a heroin addict. There's no difference. They're both equally deadly. They're both equally preventable. Now, food addictions are very real. Food addictions are very real, but you can get help for those. And if someone has that level of food addiction, they've either got to learn to completely abstain from these things on their own, the same way people who go through other 12-step programs do. In fact, the 12-step program model might be useful for people who have a food addiction, something that they just can't quit binging on, or they just have to completely abstain from it. But food addiction can be part of it, but also it is a conscious choice of lifestyles that people make. It's a conscious choice that people make every day to get up and say, I'm not going to exercise, I'm not going to join a gym, I'm not going to lift weights, I'm not going to eat healthy today, I'm not going to eat a chicken salad, instead I'm going to go eat a double bacon cheeseburger and drink a sugary drink with it. Oh, besides, I saw this research that said saturated fat isn't bad for me. I saw another set of research that said, maybe sugars aren't as bad for me as people think they are, so I'll just combine the two together and eat my double bacon cheeseburger and drink a soda for breakfast. Swing through McDonald's there. That's a conscious choice. It's a conscious choice to reject the scientific research and accept a lifestyle that is going to kill you. And the problem is that when you have fat acceptance like this is exactly what we would expect to see happen. That one of these fat acceptance promoters would just drop dead eventually from their illnesses that they scream about how healthy they are. But the reality is the data is overwhelming. There's a lot of things out there that people try to think is unhealthy that isn't necessarily as unhealthy as it's made out to be, because the data doesn't support it. Obesity is one of them. And it's not just the immediate effects, it's everything else. People who are morbidly obese, particularly when it's due to gaining muscle, isn't necessarily as bad. Gaining muscle can put strain on you, and people need to understand that, and people need to understand that people who are way in the overweight range from lifting weights, from muscle, it is steroids, guys. It's not lifting weights. You are not going to gain more than 20 pounds of muscle from lifting weights. So if you're starting out at 170 pounds, don't expect to be over 190 ever in your entire life unless you gain fat with that muscle also. It's just not going to happen. You guys, people need to chill on this nonsense that they think they're going to put 50 pounds on from lifting weights. If you do, you used a ton of steroids. You use gear. And I'm not judging anyone for that. I'm not anti-gear, but people need to understand that. But the reality is gaining excess body fat influences insulin sensitivity in the body in such a way that we know your rates of cancer go up astronomically. All right, cancer. Obesity causes cancer, and the problem you have is that all these people who say, well, I see all these skinny people who are dying of cancer. Yeah, because they're skinny now. How many of them were 300 pounds when they got it? Before they got totally sick, how many of these skeletons you're seeing were 300 pounds? A whole lot of them. All right, we know obesity increases cancer rates dramatically. We know that it increases heart disease, heart attack, stroke, all of these things. We know that it increases these things dramatically. We know that it increases diabetes rates dramatically. In fact, the best cure for type 2 diabetes, for most people, if they would just get off their ass and lose 30 pounds who are type 2 diabetic, it will usually, for at least half of people, that will cure the disease. But these people will know they have it. They know that it's going to affect their quality of life. They're going to have to inject insulin later, and they just keep going. And that's the reason it's so prevalent. That's why so many people have it. They just don't put in the effort. Or they put in half-ass efforts. They try some bad diets instead of actually talking to a registered dietitian and an actual strength coach. They follow some bad shit they read in a woman's magazine, or they try the Atkins diet or the South Beach diet, or they try a vegan diet, instead of doing this shit that actually we know for a fact is going to work. They don't go work with a dietitian. They don't do research. They try 17 different fad diets, and some of those fad diets, if they actually stuck them out for 3 years and never deviated from them, would still work. I mean, let's be honest here. Someone who's morbidly obese who went and did a pure ketogenic diet, an SKD, not a cycling ketogenic diet, but a standard ketogenic diet. They did it for 3 years straight, and they never had over 20 grams of carbs for a day for the next 3 years. They would still probably lose their 80 pounds of fat. I mean, let's be honest here. Even these fad diets still work sometimes if you actually follow them through without deviating, but they don't. And that's the problem. A lot of fad diets are so strict that people can't follow them without deviating. But the reality is, this is what we would expect to happen. And that's why a fake news story like this comes as no surprise. And she got nothing but vitriol from people, even though it wasn't real. Because anyone with common sense understands this. And this is what the fat acceptance movement needs to understand this. They're promoting and trying to normalize horrific self-destructive behavior and self-destructive lifestyles, and it's no different than people promoting and trying to normalize heroin use and heroin abuse. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.